Hi everyone, this is Allan McKay and welcome to episode 11. This episode is all about going for a job, crafting the ultimate job letter.
Welcome to the Allan McKay podcast. Allan is an Emmy Award-winning visual effects artist and mentor to many leading industry experts. Listen in as Allan talks with other industry leaders in film, video games, and visual effects about their experience, lessons, and methodology. Allan will teach you pivotal advice to fast-track your career, better your skills, and reach your ultimate dream job. Check out the latest episodes on allanmckay.com.
Hi everyone, so welcome to episode 11. So we're continuing down the path of doing these 3 times a week for all of December, and I also want to know what you guys think of these as they progress, because if there is a lot of people who are gaining value from these frequent episodes, putting out a couple a week, then there's always the possibility that I might be able to continue doing this more full time. But that being said, right now it's all about trying to make that transformation, that massive change for 2015. I think that everyone has those big goals that they want to really craft how they work and better themselves. And there's going to be a lot of different episodes that vary quite drastically. Obviously, setting your goals and all those sort of things are very more core aspects. And I know there are going to be people who are like, look, I just want to know how to get $350,000 a year. How do I get that? But there are the core foundations that you really need to lay, and I think those are really key. But I will try and mix this up as much as I can, so each episode is different. It's not like a linear path to, hitting it on the head or anything like that. But that being said, it's been great. The response I've gotten so far has been awesome, really awesome actually. I just got back from Vegas, which was a blast. I got to hang out with friends of mine from Pixar, from Autodesk, from a lot of different places, drink, have lots of hangovers. However, I just got back to LA again, so I'm happy to be back because for me, I've had non-stop travel the past couple of months, and it's one of those things that I've learned is taking on a lot of stuff and then having distractions around you can definitely get in the way of your progress. So I've been waiting for this moment where I can finally say, okay, I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to be in LA for the foreseeable future. So I'm really excited about that. And it means I can really start to sit down and focus on what I have coming up and what I have in front of me right now as well. So that being said, Vegas was great. I ended up working a lot in my hotel room, which I kind of regret just because I had so many great friends I hadn't seen in so long. And, no matter what, work's always going to be there. So either way, I still got to see like Neil Blevins, or the other really cool guys, and have a few beers and catch up. So it was a great fun time to be there. But now I'm back in action doing this. So now this episode is going to be on getting a job. It's more about writing a good job application, and I think I might do a few of these. And it's more to do with what to do right and what not to do. So what I'm going to be talking about is more just the formula that I typically have. And this is something that I've kind of crafted over time, and it's not like I've intentionally done a lot of this, but I look at the responses I get from jobs that I either apply for or emails I send out, and what actually happens in those conversations. So it's more something I've kind of learned along the way. It's not like I'm purposely tweaking things to get like a manipulated response or anything like that at all. But I do notice that there are certain habits that I've done, and I look at why I've done them or what happened when I did do them. And the responses, it makes complete sense when you look at it more from what's going on kind of under the hood. There's just a lot of little triggers or other things like that. So this episode is more like a quick brief overview of just more how I typically will structure my emails. And I'll just say right away, and that is the main things are to present myself right away, to make myself searchable in the emails, but also to kind of give an overview of what my email's about, and really use it as well a way to kind of set the tone of your email, as well as just a few ways to kind of really make it a bit more friendly and human in terms of your conversations. And the main thing is you're just starting a conversation. That's what it's all about. It isn't necessarily about trying to sell them and close them in your email. It's about just saying hi, introducing yourself, getting them to want to know you through qualifying yourself and everything else. So that all being said, let's just dive in. And Yeah, I'd love to hear your responses, especially about this one. I've talked about this before, and I've gotten a lot of feedback with people who haven't had work for a while, and then they've gotten jobs at like really big studios, like using this exact format. So again, I'd love to hear what you guys think. Thanks again. Let's dive in. Okay, so typically I spend a good day prepping for an episode. I do a lot of work, research, and a lot of time goes into putting these together. This episode, because of putting out 3 a week and also just coming back from Vegas and all the other chaos that's been going on, South Carolina, I am going to do this one off the cuff. So in other words, I'm going to be winging it a little bit. So bear with me here. But that being said, I'm going to cover some stuff that I think is very valuable, and it's something that I've covered a little bit in the past at a few live talks I've done at SIGGRAPH, places like that, but it's something that to this day is typically how I structure my emails, how I contact studios and reach out to people. Now, I just want to go through a few things because I review a lot of reels, I review a lot of job applications. I've got my own company, but I'm not always looking to hire people. However, I do get a lot of people contacting me, reaching out, applying for work. Now, if I'm not looking, I definitely will pass the names to other people, and I keep them on file for myself, so that way I can use them down the line as well. But at the same time, I'm not always looking to specifically hire someone. Now, that being said, I do see a lot of really interesting emails that vary. Some are really smart, very genius in how they apply for work. And then there's some that have a lot of really bad habits. And I might at a later time kind of discuss a few of the really common ones that keep popping up. I think that would be kind of interesting to kind of deconstruct a bit about that. However, in this episode, I just want to go through a bit more of the context of writing a good job application email. Typically, when I'm reaching out to studios, I'm not necessarily applying for work. I'm actually more just looking to build a relationship. And for me, networking is a key thing that I will always say it's one of probably the 5 or even the 3 most valuable things you should be doing with your business and how you work. But that being said, I just want to kind of give you guys a bit of incentive into how to go about doing that. So all that being said, usually when I start an email, and like I said, I'm doing this off the cuff, but I will be following up with some email scripts in the next few days. So if you're not on the email list for this month, then I advise you to sign up at this episode, which is episode 11. So allanmckay.com/11. And then I'll be sending out information about this in the coming days, proper email scripts and everything else. I will say, and I will urge this at the end of this episode as well, but the email scripts that I send, I highly, highly do not recommend just copy pasting them. It's not going to be beneficial to anyone if we're all, if everyone is using the same emails word for word. It's not going to help you or anyone at all. But what I do suggest is that you go through this episode, you go through the material, and you get to understand the concepts behind it, about how to structure a good solid email, where all the really good value points are that you can put a successful email to get the result that you want. So I really suggest that, and nobody is going to benefit if we just copy and paste my emails and start applying for jobs that way. All that being said, whenever I write an email, I always summarize at the very beginning who I am and why I'm reaching out to them. More so, I always make my subject heading first, quite meta, in other words, like quite taggable, like having a lot of keywords that people are able to search and find you very easily. So in other words, you don't want to write an email that's RE colon, or job. You don't want to do something like that, because if this person's like a human resource manager for, a big company, Disney, something like that, they're going to be dealing with a lot of people. And if they need to search for you later on or find you, or even if they are just overwhelmed with job applications and they're looking for specific people, you can get lost in the system with all their other stuff. One of my friends at Weta years and years ago now, before he ended up there, we always joked about when you'd send your reel, and back then it would be like a VHS cassette, it would always get lost in this giant never-ending dark room that would just get thrown in there, and along with the hundreds of millions of other reels, and it was always kind of like how you would picture it. It's just basically that your reel goes in, it gets looked at, it either makes it or it disappears into the archives and may or may not ever see the light of day. Now, all of that being said, these days everything is digital. You usually apply through a job application on their website or you email them with all your info, but you want to make sure that all your stuff is findable. And better so, you want to kind of hack this a little bit by making your stuff pop up even when they might be searching for other stuff. So in other words, I think it's important to think of the tags to put in that, without sounding spammy, are related to what you do. So putting in the subject heading, either your title, experience, couple other things that you might do, other relevant information. So I might say Allan McKay, VFX supervisor, technical director, dynamics, job application. I might put in 20 years experience or whatever, like whatever other things that pop out. And the whole point is that when someone is scrolling through a bunch of emails, yours is going to stand out with like a big sales pitch in a subject heading. And the whole point is not necessarily for them to look at it the first time around, although it will be a major incentive to get them to actually open it, and I'll get into that in a moment. But it's more important because it's going to help recapture their attention later on, as well as be searchable. So in other words, if they do a search for effects, my name's going to pop up in their email search. If they do a search for my name, it's going to pop up, obviously. If they do a search for a different role, I've put in a few additional ones in there as well, dynamics or whatever. And the whole point is that it's going to make my stuff pop up a lot more, as well as be the big sales pitch to be like, oh, well, I was looking for this other guy, but who is this one? So again, it's about making it searchable and also making it stand out. That being said, one of the key things is that if you get a lot of people applying, like me personally, I cannot open every single email that I get. And also when I do, as much as I want to check out everyone's work, I am always battling email. It's probably the biggest Achilles heel that I have. And for me to be able to open them all, it's very unlikely. So typically, if someone states what they do and who they are and everything about them, it's going to give me a summary of like, okay, well, now I know what this guy's about. Is this someone I need to check out? Like, is this someone that I might be able to use right now? Great, well, I'm going to click on their stuff. So if I need effects people and an effects artist with more than 3 years experience hits me up that day, I might say, you know what, we need someone right away. That's great. Other people, if I have time, and it's more, it gets to a point where you cannot answer every single email and do all that. I try my best to do that, but it's not always the case. So keep that in mind. If you make a bit of a sales pitch, the first 2 lines of your email should really just kind of give you an idea of like what the rest of the email is going to say. So typically, and again, I'm winging this, but I might say, hi, I'm Allan McKay. I'm a VFX supervisor and technical director. I'm, based in LA and interested in reaching out to you guys for XYZ. Whatever you want to say. You might say, I've previously worked at these studios on these projects, whatever. Just 2 lines to quickly summarize all of your best points. You don't need it to sound braggy, but you do need it to really sell you and all of your skill sets. So that way, when they read it, they're going to say, wow, okay, I want to read more about this guy. At the same time, it's important to put it at the top for 2 big reasons. One is because if you put it down the middle or the bottom, you're going to run into an issue here where, imagine if someone applies for a job and they say, hi, I'm Rick. I'm really interested in working for your company. I love the work that you guys do. It's always impressed me, and I've always thought I'd need to reach out and talk to you guys. And I've recently moved to the city, and I'd be really interested in talking with you guys about any positions you have coming up. At this point already, you're kind of like, all right, this guy's being a little bit over friendly. Who is this guy? It's kind of, he hasn't really justified why he can be a little bit more talking to you at that level instead of, hey, I really want to work for you and qualify. So, and from there, he transitions into, by the way, I've been working for Disney for 25 years. I've been working at Pixar the last 10 years, and I've won all these awards, and I'm actually an animation director, blah, blah, blah. Suddenly, that's going to shift the entire way that you look at that email. The whole vibe about it, the way that you perceive this person has entirely changed. So suddenly, it's gone from like, okay, I don't know who this guy is or what he wants. he sounds like someone who's probably maybe doesn't have experience, I don't know, to suddenly like, oh, I gotta listen up now. I need to pay attention. The entire context changes. And if you reread the email at that point, you're gonna be like, wow, the whole vibe has changed. And I say that because I think it's very important to put the vibe, set the vibe in the very beginning of the email by saying, hey, I've got all this experience. I'm at a professional level. Here's what I do. And now that you're listening, let me go through and talk about this stuff. At the same time, that's the second part of this, is the fact that you should also state who you are and all the credentials, because it gives them incentive to actually read your email. If you've got bombarded with a lot of email, a lot of job applications, you're going to be clicking through them and not necessarily get to open all of them. I hate to say it, but it doesn't always happen. If you have a human resources person, someone who does that for their job, then they're going to be a lot more attentive. But if you're in the middle of deadlines, chaos, and you're trying to get through to survive till Christmas, it's going to be very difficult to actually have the time to open, read, and respond to every single email you get. And I try my best, but again, it just doesn't happen. Now, I might read them or at least look them over, but it doesn't mean that I'm necessarily going to have time to click on every single 5-minute reel that pops into my inbox. However, if you were to write an email, in the first 2 lines, you summarize who you are. Again, hi, I'm Rick. I'm a 21 years working at, let's say, Disney, and this studio, this studio, this studio. I've previously worked on these movies, which have also received all these awards. I'm located here. However, I also have credentials or visas to work in Canada and New Zealand, let's say. Having all that summarized right away, it's going to give your application a massive, massive kick. It's going to really help project you to a higher status. And the whole point is that you want to set the context before they actually read the email. So by you qualifying yourself in the first 2 lines of your email, it's like, okay, here's who I am, here's what I'm about to say, and go. And suddenly now they're listening, now they're paying attention. Whereas before it might have been like, okay, I don't have time, like, who are you? Scroll through. Okay, I got 5 more of these I got to go through before lunch. By setting the context, by showing that you are at a level, like really impress them, really sell them, as well as know what it's about, they're more likely to read it, and they'll read it in the right vibe or the right context that you need them to read it in. Even if you're just starting out, that's totally fine, but you figure out your sales points. You don't give a life story necessarily, but you give a quick 2 lines to really capture them, really bring them in. And the whole point is to get them to listen and to read the next line. Okay, so it's a massive, massive influencer just by doing that. Now, beyond that, one of the key things, actually, I will mention, like, there's probably going to be a few like emails I might do a breakdown on later on about what works, what not to do. But I was just quickly scrubbing through some of the emails that I get. I did notice, and I did watch his reel because of this. I don't recommend making your emails too convoluted. I like to think that when you're sending an email, it's the start of a conversation. You're not trying to tell the beginning, middle, and end. You're literally just saying, let me get you interested in talking to me, and then from there, let's start this conversation. Let's start to discuss back and forth and play the game. So one email I got, and actually when I say the beginning, middle, and end, it actually really does apply in this sense here, where I had one guy write down quickly who he is, and then he jumped right to how much he charges per day, what services, when he's available, and basically that he's not going to negotiate his pay, that this is what he charges and this is what he's charged everywhere in the past. That I thought was really interesting because I've never seen someone literally reach out and already start discussing money in their introductory email. To go further, I actually clicked on his reel, and halfway through the video, it actually cuts to him on camera discussing his rates and how much he charges and all of his other clients that he charges this much money in the past for as well. Now, I've never seen that in my life, and I do think that something like that comes off really not in the right way. It's good to say, okay, well, I stand by my rate and everything else, but to start talking about that stuff right away, I do kind of find that I think it is going to leave a pretty bad impression. just because it's something you work towards. You're building that relationship before you begin to do all the stuff that technically is considered sealing the deal. It's the final bits that you go through. And for you to be doing that right away is a big no-no in my opinion, let alone on your reel. I think that just definitely, can, I think, scare away a lot of people. I'm actually struggling to kind of put it in the right context without just saying like, nobody fucking does that. That being said, it definitely is interesting to kind of see where people, like what people's motives are when they're applying for work too. And to go into that for a moment, I mean, again, you need to understand, like, it is definitely a business. We're all in this to get by and make money, but at the same time, you do want to see that someone is passionate about what they do and why they're applying and what their intentions are. If you say you're applying for a paycheck, then that's brutally honest and it's fine. However, to kind of jump in right away, kind of demanding money and demanding that sort of stuff, you are really kind of damaging your chances of actually getting a response. Now, all that being said, going back to emails and discussions on how to structure them, I don't typically ever ask for anything when I actually email people. And again, I have discussed this before, and if you've heard those talks, I go in depth a lot more about this. There's a few of them floating around the web. But it's a pretty interesting thing that I've just found from my own experience, both on applying or reaching out to people, as well as having people reach out to me. If, let's say you have someone email you and they basically say that they want a job and they really love the company and they want to work for you. And then they begin to say, I need the money. I've got all of these life problems and I can't make my car payments. My wife is stressing me out because I'm not doing my job properly of providing, and or husband, whichever. But at the end of the day, they've got all these life issues and they really need you to essentially give them the solution to all their problems. Now, that sounds a bit funny and I am blowing out of proportion, but I've actually gotten far worse emails than that. Like really, really emails that will essentially give you like a big emotional spike, like your heart's racing, like you've just had someone's entire life issues dumped on you to resolve them. And the thing is that you don't know that person. And even on a smaller scale, just basically having people email you and say that I need a job, I'm looking to, for you to hire me right away. When can you have me come in for an interview? Whatever it is, it suddenly puts you in a situation where they clearly want something, and if you don't provide it, like if you don't reply with a proper response that they need, then, what do you do? And again, I've watched this a lot, both myself as well as talking to other people, where you do have that feeling of like, it's easier not to respond than to respond to someone without good news, without the news that they want, okay? And so for you to reach out to people and basically ask for something from them, it definitely does kind of hit a bit of a nerve, and not necessarily a bad nerve, but it does make them feel like, okay, you're asking me for something. Whatever and however the extremities can be, it is one of those things that you are reaching out, you're asking them for something. So what I find is that I want this conversation to start, and I'll get into some of the really powerful reasons why later on, but for me, this email that I'm reaching out to a company, it isn't about me saying, okay, you need to give me a job. More so, I need this much money and blah, 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 blah. All I want to do is I want to get a response from them. I want to woo them a little bit and say, I'm passionate about what I do. I want to work for you. I don't need to tell my life story, but I need to kind of get them hooked a little bit, show interest, get a response, get a conversation going, okay? So that being said, when I reach out, I'm not necessarily looking for work, and that's what I say and convey in the email. And most of the time, it's not the case anyway. I'm more emailing them because I saw their work, and I'm like, you guys are awesome. I just wanted to email you and say great job. Okay, so I'm not always applying, but even if I am, I don't email them and say, hey, what's up? I'm this person. By the way, can I get a job? Because for me, I just find that is a little too direct, and I'd rather get a conversation going, get them to know me a little bit, and then say, by the way, let me know if there's any work going on. And I think that's very powerful, because it makes them feel like there's no pressure. If they want to continue the conversation, it's not because I want something from them. In other words, when I apply for a job, typically what I'll do, and let me just, again, I'm winging this, I'm saying it right off the top of my head, but if I was applying for a job, I would say, hi, I'm Allan McKay. I am a technical director and a VFX supervisor. I've been working in the industry for 20 years. I'm based in LA, and I've worked for, this, and this studio, and I've worked on these projects. I basically just wanted to email you to, say hi, because I really love the work that you guys do. And also I've attached my reel and everything else, just in case anything ever pops up. Either way, keep up the awesome work. I had a quick question about the recent project you guys did. I thought it was really freaking cool. Like, I was curious how many people worked on that project, ? That's it. Thanks again. I really appreciate your time. Kindest regards, Allan. Now, again, I'm winging that, but, so I'm just making it up as I go. But a couple of things is that I basically state who I am at the top to do that 2-line, get them interested. But from there, it's more about saying, like, I really love your work. I'm passionate about what I do. And I'm just reaching out because, I want to send you my stuff. And, down the line, no pressure. If anything pops up, let me know. Either way, no big deal. You guys, again, are great. And I had a question about this. And the question, again, is a bit more of a hook. I don't ask questions. It's actually pretty rare. However, I don't think there's anything wrong with saying, like, something to keep the conversation going. I will do that in other contexts a lot, where you end an email or end something with a question. And I've had people actually point that out to me that I do that, and I'm like, okay, I didn't realize I did it that much, that people are actually aware of it. But it forces the conversation to continue going, and it's just a good way to kind of keep that back and forth, that ping pong going. So I think it's really important and really valuable to have that. Now, the main thing is just not asking for anything. I still give them my reel, my resume, but I'm not saying you need to respond with a response about whether I can have something from you. I think that's very important. So they're able to respond and say, thanks so much for the email. That's really awesome. I'll check out your work when we have time. We're really busy right now, but I appreciate the email. And to answer your question, we actually had, 20 people on it. It was a crazy project, blah, blah, blah. And from there, you can start a conversation if you want, or you can leave it at that. They've now kind of, you've broken the seal, you've actually started a conversation. They're probably going to remember who you are just because you had that brief moment of talking, okay? Plus, people are going to be more interested just because, more interested in checking your stuff out because you are kind of going in under the radar. Now, this isn't being sneaky at all. It's more just the fact I'm respectful enough not to say, I need a job, here's my work, which again, I've seen emails like that too. So just by doing that, it's a bit of voodoo, but it works very effectively. And I think that it's more respectful of them, and it shows that you're more, you're not in a rush, and it can be pretty powerful. The final thing I'll say is that what I do a lot of is I will send an email out and I'll say pretty much what I said before, except I might say, hi, so-and-so, I just want to send you my reel and everything. Really love the work you guys are doing. I'm not currently looking for work. I do this, this, and this. I just finished working on this project. I'm currently working on this, and I'm going to quickly jump onto this next project afterwards. Now, by saying that, it's just a quick one line, but I've actually managed to mention I'm not looking for work, which means, okay, you're employable. You've got people after you hiring you, so therefore you're not like, basically in between jobs and maybe a bit of a risk, like why don't you have work right now, which could be anything. It could be just the industry sucks right now, or it could be that you lost your job. It could be a lot of things. So the point is that by saying I have work right now, it actually shows that, okay, great, you're in the industry, things are happening, people are after you. Now, the fact that you mention 3 projects by saying I just finished this, I'm doing this, I'm quickly jumping onto this, that's really effective because you just managed to name drop 3 projects you're doing, which means, again, you're really busy. It's also really effective because it means that, okay, well, he just did this and this project, so great, there's a bit of a promotion there. I'm quickly jumping onto this means that, okay, you're in high demand. You've got other projects afterwards. And more importantly, you're actually saying, I'm quickly jumping onto this project. I've used that a lot. And it is more just something I typically do. But the quickly, oddly enough, if they want you, every single time this has happened, they're always asking, when you mention quickly, how long is the project for? Because we need someone to start in 2 weeks. So then you can say, well, I haven't committed to it, but I'm meant to be starting this project. We're in the final phase of discussion. If you want, we can quickly chat about what you've got coming up. Maybe we can figure something out. So again, it's just a bit of a, not sneaky, but it's a way to be able to say that you have stuff coming up, but you've managed to promote your your projects within that one line saying, I'm doing all this cool stuff. So these are all invisible threads is what I call them, but essentially you're pushing or promoting yourself through these invisible threads. So in other words, you're not saying, I'm so great, I've got all these things going on. You're just quickly saying, like, very casually, as you would say to a friend, I just wrapped on this, I'm currently doing this, and I'm going to quickly jump onto this project. And I want to reach out to you because I really love your work. Here's some of my work and my resume or whatever, just so you guys have it on file. I just thought I'd send it out. Either way, love your work. And by the way, this project, blah, 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 if you wanted to do something like that. So like I said, those are just some things that I'm kind of winging it, doing it off the cuff, but kind of show a bit of the mindset that I'll go into. I don't try and blatantly talk myself up. I will say that it's very, very ineffective to talk yourself down, okay? I don't brag. I talk to people how I would probably talk to a friend. And I think I do that with everything that I do. And I've done that with interviews my entire life. And I think I mentioned that in an early episode, but I've always treated them like an equal. I've never tried to talk up or down to them. I treat them like a friend, and I feel like most people will reciprocate when you do that. Now, the main thing is just that by talking to them casually, you can say, yeah, I just wrapped on this, I'm currently on this, things are really busy right now. It sounds natural. You're not saying, I previously worked on this in 1992, followed by that on 1995, through to this year, I've been tied to this project. And I think that if you hire me, I can do good things for your company. You don't want to sound like a robot. You want the conversation to flow. And more importantly, you want that back and forth. You want to get this conversation started. By mentioning, money and all that at the beginning, you're jumping to the end of the conversation. They're going to make up their mind before you've even had a chance to really woo them on yourself. If you say, I charge this much money and I do this, what's going to really happen is it's going to be like, all right, well, you're not worth it. And if that's the case, goodbye. Before you've had a chance to kind of get them interested. And that's another thing I was going to get into, is about the whole beginning, middle, and end, which is when you're sending out the emails, you want to start the conversation. I mentioned this at SIGGRAPH for Autodesk University a few years ago about the importance of this when you're applying for work or doing stuff like that, which is that when you contact them, you don't need to give your whole life story, all the things you're worried about in the beginning. In other words, you don't necessarily start out with, hi, I'd like you to hire me. I do really great work. By the way, I don't live in your city, so I need relocation money. I also need a visa as well, so that's another thing too. And by the way, can we talk about money, because I want to negotiate right now. I mean, if you do all this stuff, it's just a big, whoa, it's very overwhelming. You're giving him too much information. I use the analogy that if you're going on a date, you don't go on and tell them everything about you. You kind of wait, date for a little bit, get to know each other, fall in love a little bit, and that's when you come out with, by the way, I'm batshit crazy, and it's too late. So the same thing with applying for a job. You don't give all the complications, the things you're worried about. You wait for them to kind of make the decision about whether they want to hire you. And I don't mean leave it to the last minute, but what I'm trying to get at is that if you give someone too much information too soon, it is just warning bells. It's all these things going off. It's very overwhelming. Now, if you were to say, I'm really interested in working with you, here's my stuff, let them make that conscious decision. Okay, this person I'm kind of interested in talking to. Then when you've had the reply, you can say, great, that's so awesome. I'd really love to work for your company. I will let you know, by the way, that I do need to get a visa, and I hope that's not a complication. I've looked into it. I know the steps. However, for us to move forward, I might need XYZ in the process. Let me know if that's a problem. That all being said, I would make it worth your while. I love your company. I'd definitely make it a long-term thing. whatever you want to do. But at this point, it's more the conversation has started. You don't just throw it in there on first date, I'm insane, and hope that they don't go, great, well, I'm not going to do the second date anymore. I mean, the whole point is that you just kind of begin to build that conversation, get to know each other. And by me saying have them get interested in you, it is about just get them to make that decision whether they want to continue the conversation, whether they want to go down the avenue, the path of maybe hiring you, before you discuss all the logistics behind it. Because otherwise it can be very overwhelming. They can, just assume too much by not having all the information. So, just ease into it. Start the conversation, start that back and forth. Don't go demanding money. Don't go throwing all this stuff in there right away. Now, like I said, this is a bit off the cuff. I've definitely kind of jumped into this just to cover a few key things, and I hope that I didn't ramble on too much, but I do think these are very valuable. And the main thing is just the fact that you don't want people to feel like you're just directly reaching out because you want something. And of course, it's a two-way street. You're applying for a job, but it's more the vibe you're setting. You want to approach them, use a few of these invisible threads to pump up your status or how they might perceive you. And this, I know a few guys I worked with recently actually said that they got their job at a pretty big studio by using these approaches. And I'm not trying to say lie or do anything like that. One of the guys did say he didn't have any work at the time, and by listening to a talk I'd given, he thought it actually makes more sense to say you currently do have work, because at least then they see you as employable, and there's not that, okay, well, why don't you have work? So I'm not trying to say ever to lie. I think that if you ever lie, you're probably going to get caught, and that applies to everything. So I think it's more about evaluating what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are, and really like hone in and work on those strengths. Really focus in and try and make those stand out, have the biggest punch. I will at some point talk about, I hate the term elevator pitch, but I do think that it's worthwhile working on figuring out what your big selling points are. And that'll be in another talk that I'll do about really working out the way to market yourself, to present yourself, so that way it really has that whoa, okay, this guy means business. And so we'll get into that another time, but I do think that you need to make sure that you can figure out the qualities that you have and that you can promote yourself the best. So that way you're not underselling yourself or going the other way and sounding too cocky, demanding too much too soon. You need to kind of find that perfect balance. So that being said, just go about finding that balance, going and approaching them, using the invisible threads to make sure that you're very conversational. You're just beginning the conversation. You're not trying to demand a big document of what you want, when you want to start, all these other things, because that's the quickest way to have no response, just radio silence. Alright, so that was awesome. And one thing I will mention on top of that is typically I do say things like kindest regards and, really friendly stuff at the bottom. I know some people will think that's a little too formal, but I will say the reason I do that is, again, you can undersell yourself. You can say I'm not very good and, there are better people than me out there. When you talk badly about yourself and try and be humble, but a little too humble, you're actually doing a lot of damage here just by the fact that you're really saying okay, well, I'm not very confident about my skills. And I know nobody wants to come off being really cocky and overconfident, but it can be just as damaging to do the reverse. So I always write my emails being confident, friendly, and saying what I've done so that way they understand. But just because it is email, it's very easy to misinterpret what you're saying. So I always make sure I'm very friendly and very humble at the end of my emails, just to kind of course correct that issue. So that way, just in case there is ever any misunderstanding, wow, that guy seemed very braggy or whatever, I sound very friendly and genuine at the end. And it's just more to make sure that the message I'm giving is taken as it is, because again, email, text, all that stuff can be very, very misinterpreted at certain times. So just kind of keep that thing in mind. So all that being said, I'm going to be putting out some info in the email list for this month. So again, anyone who's not on that, basically it's a little emailing list I'm doing for this month, so that way everyone who's serious about really making an impact in their career, making changes, getting the money, the promotions, getting to travel the world, do all the cool stuff, work on the projects you want to work on, have job stability, do all that cool stuff. I'm going to be sending out a lot of info about that. I want this month to be something we all do together. So for everyone on that list, I'm going to be sending, stuff like this episode. I'll be giving you guys actual scripts that you can actually look over, example letters that I use to get work. And there'll be other ones, last week as well, diagrams about how to set your goals, how to break it all down, more information about that. It will come in sporadically just because I'm jumping on. I've got 5 different projects on right now, so I will do my best to kind of keep these coming out consecutively. But that being said, that information will be coming up. I don't want to publish that stuff necessarily for everyone to see, and that's why I'm doing it through a mailing list. Just because, I don't think that all the information I'm putting out, I want to be available to everyone. I think it'd be better to actually have it quite exclusive to the people who are actually very serious about this. And there is stuff that if I just gave to everyone, then I think it's really beneficial this way. And for me, I'm really excited, and that's why I'm doing these episodes this month, to really make this a heavy hitting, impactful month for all of us. So there's going to be lots more. I'm going to be putting up more episodes next week, and they're going to be pretty cool. They're going to be pretty fun. There's definitely going to be some subjects that are quite taboo. In other words, there's stuff that people just don't talk about because it's either money related, or it's stuff to do with like how to bid on projects and how to do stuff that, it's just the people who know how to do it don't typically share it. And I think it'd be great to kind of put out a lot of really great info. So as time progresses, this month is really going to be a big transforming month for all of us. Now, beyond that, I think that's it for this episode. I'm going to be putting out another one Monday, so keep an eye out for that. And I'd love your feedback. And if you're not on the list, get on the list. But I'd love your feedback on what your thoughts are, anything you want to add to it, experiences you've had applying for work, or tactics you have. Again, we're all out here doing this together. It's not taboo kind of stuff to kind of keep to yourself. I think that a lot of this is all relatively the same, and at the end of the day, it really comes down to who you are, what you're about, what are your skills, and what you can bring to the table. The letter is not going to get you the job, but it is definitely something that can stop you from getting a job by mispresenting yourself or doing things, miscommunicating how you go about your job and your application. So all that being said, obviously this episode has been a bit of a ramble, but I hope you got a lot from it. So next episode is Monday, and we'll continue our journey to making a total career transformation and a massive impact for 2015. Thank you again, guys. Let me know your feedback and comments. Thanks.